Welcome, USFL fans, football fans, but most importantly, Houston Gamblers fans. Welcome to Gamblers Table Talk with Ace. I'm Ace, and joining me today is the Houston Gamblers offensive line coach, Andy Townsend. Coach, how are you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I don't get a lot of coaches on the show. One, because there's not that many coaches, and two, because there's a lot of turnaround this offseason with coaches, including you moving from running backs coach to offensive line coach. So before we get into your past and stuff, how did that come about?
Yep. So it was kind of funny. I was actually spring recruiting for a college school, my last stop, which was Texas Wesleyan right here in Fort Worth. And Bob Morris, our GM, called and said there had been some things that some movement going on, and some people had some emergencies, and asked if I could come in and just get them through the season. And man, I don't know if he finished the sentence before I was in my truck driving to my daughter's elementary school to have lunch with her before I didn't see her again for 5 weeks. And the rest, just getting through the summer. And like you mentioned, the coaching changes and everything. Got an opportunity to coach offensive line, and Gordy Shaw was the offensive line coach last year. Did an outstanding job. It's going to be incredibly hard to fill his shoes, but I'm going to do the best I can.
Well, I've done all the research on you. I've looked at your resume. I think we found a good guy. I think that as far as offensive line goes, I mean, you can't find a much better resume than this. Yep. Speaking of, let's dive into it. So you played at East Texas Baptist, D3 school that you said earlier, I believe, right?
Sure. Yes, sir.
And you played offensive line.
Yep. Well, play is a strong word. Those who can do and those who can't coach. And, I had a great offensive line coach and a great offensive line at East Texas Baptist University. So, my bigger contributions probably came on the sideline just talking ball with him.
Well, apparently you soaked it all in like a sponge, because then offensive line is all through your resume.
Sure.
But you came back, and your first gig working and not playing was being the video coordinator in 2004 over at ETB.
Yep.
And what exactly is a video coordinator?
So a video coordinator is exactly as bad as it sounds. You got to take all the video and all the cameramen and women and put together a plan for practices, games, travel. And, we in college, you video everything. High school was a little bit different, especially coming from a small school in East Texas, Paul Pewitt. I don't even know if we had 2 video cameras, and now I'm in charge of 10 video cameras. And, just coordinating it and cutting it up. And this was back before Huddle and digital video. So there were times where you could literally pull the VCR tape and cut it and splice it together in case if you messed it up. And, a lot of these younger coaches won't know about that, but it's a real thing.
True. Thinking about that, that's crazy to think, because I did play football in the Huddle era. So, we had 2 cameras in high school, 2 different angles, and then they would just kind of go cut it up on the computer, and then we could watch it literally that night. We could watch it. Yeah. We would watch our plays. So thinking about recording everything, not having necessarily like digital cameras, VHS, that sounds so much harder than I imagined it at all. And I have a much greater appreciation for what you were doing there now. Wow.
Especially now when highlights are kind of the fab, and, just VCR to VCR, getting it to DVD. I mean, it was an incredible process, and one that I think propelled me to, be really good at this job. To be honest, I got there, and, the 5th week of the season, there were some coaches that didn't know how to turn the computer on. And so, and, to their credit, they coached a lot of ball and it earned the right. So, I think it was a breath of fresh air getting there and just, being able to operate, the video and systems like that, because I was in the quality control also type role, and being able to help move along some things in a more efficient way. I think, the coaches appreciated.
True. It's almost hard to think about the pre-Huddle, pre-YouTube era of highlights, because nowadays you can DM a coach on Twitter, Instagram, and send them your entire highlight tape. Whereas back then, heck, you'd have to figure out where they live, send the tape. They might find that a little creepy. Who knows?
Coach, we used to have to drive, like if we were playing a school that was 12 hours away, we had to find 6-hour meeting deck grounds. So they would start driving, we would start driving, and I would meet them in the middle, and we would change tape. And then when it got to the game, we would give each other their tape back. That's the prehistoric way.
Oh my gosh, it reminds me of like the movie We Are Marshall with Matthew McConaughey, where they drive all the way down to what is it?
West Virginia.
Yeah, or yes, West Virginia. They drive all the way down there to learn about the VR option, to go to their film room with the big film things and stuff. I mean, it was probably different than the huge film cans, but same kind of concept almost. That is crazy. Nowadays, it's so easy. People are sending me their tape thinking somehow I'm going to get them on the team. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what to do for you. But you moved on from there, and you went to be the tight end and O-line coach at Navarro College, which for everybody who has Netflix has heard of in the small little town because of the show Cheer.
Right.
But this was before that show, and you were more O-line there. What was that like for the 2 years you were there?
So I was actually, there in, the year that we won the national championship was 2010. That was my first year there. I was working with the O-line coach. I was kind of his assistant, and then I more exclusively worked with the tight ends. And I mean, it was a lot like what we got going on here, because there was 4-person staff, 5-person staff. I think we had maybe even less than that. And so, it was all hands on deck all the time. And, I really think that it helped kind of mold my coaching philosophy. Worked for a guy that was incredible, Nick Bobeck. And I mean, his work ethic was unbelievable. And it really kind of shaped me as the coach that I am today.
Wow. Navarro College coming in clutch. That's cool. And then from there, you go to West Texas A&M. A lot of Texas, I notice. It's almost like you have some kind of allegiance to this state.
Sure. No, I'm born and raised here. I've never lived, well, except for that 5 weeks we spent in Birmingham. That's the longest I've ever been out of this state. And and it is the only time I've ever lived anywhere else. And our address was the hotel.
That's interesting, especially, just talking to different people. I grew up a military brat, so I lived everywhere. So I almost have just a jealousy about people who were able to do that, just grow up in the same place, call Texas their home, and have friends longer than 3 years before they moved, that kind of thing. Sure. But you moved on to West Texas A&M, regional finals, and 2 of your O-linemen were all region, all conference, and one of them was the LSC Offensive Lineman of the Year. So you apparently did a fantastic job there as an O-line coach.
Well, I definitely don't deserve any of the credit for it, but we did have some good players. To get the Offensive Lineman of the Year in that conference meant that you probably had an NFL type guy, and his name was Craig Watts. He went on, had several cups of coffee in the league, and we had a basketball player, athletic kind of guy that was also just kind of a defensive guy that we converted to tackle, and that was the coaching part. But those guys made it so easy. Don Carthel was, one of my mentors. He's actually the one that brought me there. And, I inherited a pretty dadgum good group and talented, and it was pretty easy. Just once you give them the direction, it's pretty easy after that.
Well, it says a lot about you, first of all, to just give all of the credit to the players. That's a good coach, in my opinion. But you also had a hand in it, and it's impressive. And something under your belt.
Yeah, it took work. There's no doubt, especially with Terrence Harris. My left tackle, we call him first team now, because no one expected him to even start or play, and he ended up, being an All-American. And it did take work and extra hours and time, one-on-one time with him on the field. And, in my mind, it's, it's those extra things that you do. Offensive linemen, they're selfless anyway, right? So it's the extra stuff that you can give them that kind of separates them from the next man. And, it helps develop a group. And once you get your group of 5, man, if they're on the same page, it's an incredible thing to watch.
I like how you said that. They are the most selfless group. And that is true. It's almost like you have to be a different breed to be an offensive lineman. One, you have to be selfish.
Heavier.
Selfless. One, you have to be selfless. 2, you have to be heavier, like you said. And 3, apparently, you have to be just one of the funniest people you've ever met. Because every offensive lineman I've met is just hilarious.
Yeah, and man, I tell you what, I've coached offensive line a long time, but the group that I had at Texas Wesleyan, I don't know if I've had more fun. It's NAIA school, still good college football. They won the conference this year, and but I mean, you're right. The offensive line, it takes some sort of chemical imbalance or something, in your brain to just, hey, you know what? I'm going to go smash my head against a wall for 65 plays so someone else can get the credit. And, it is, I've coached defense and I loved coaching that time on defense. I think it's made me a better football coach, but there's nothing better than coaching a bunch of offensive line.
As long as you're wary of what they send you in the group chat. From what I've seen, it gets dangerous.
Oh, it is. It is. And like I mentioned my group, I was talking to my good friend and mentor, Jordan Higgins, earlier. And I mean, I probably left his group chat 50 times during the season. And because I got kids. I don't want my phone to be laying around all of a sudden, who knows what
stuff.
Yeah. So, but I mean, they're fun, but I think you have to. I really do, because like I said, you're hitting a brick wall 65 times a game, and, and everyone's crediting the quarterback or the running back or the receivers, but in our world, we know it's, we're the engine that makes the train go.
The silent heroes of the offense.
Yes, no doubt.
My best friend was an offensive lineman, so I have the utmost appreciation, and I have seen many offensive line highlights and also many offensive line group chats, and they are dark. But from there, you made a jump up to being an intern at SMU and coaching there for a season. What made you want to make that jump and go to SMU? And then how was it when you were there?
Sure. So, the inspiration was two-factored. My house was in Dallas. SMU's in Dallas.
That's
a plus. And then SMU had really good coaches. June Jones was the head coach at the time, and and I wanted to aspire to be a really good offensive coach. And back in that, those early to late teens, I don't know how people say 2000s or late teens, tens, whatever it is, he had them rolling, and so it was an opportunity to kind of get in the door a little bit, but also learn some football at a very high level from a guy that's done it. I mean, he's head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, he'd done it at a lot of big time places. So it was an exciting opportunity that, because I married up, I was able to do. And as long as the wife was okay with it, I was going to do it.
I like how you said, as long as the wife's okay with it, because
no doubt.
Like you mentioned before the show, being in the football club, the Gamblers Club, it's a great club. But the best club is the dad club, husband club. So
there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Coach. I respect that.
For sure.
But do you think that SMU really propelled you into, some more success into your career and eventually leading you to professional football?
Well, I don't think it hurt. In this business, it's about who you know and where you've been and who you kind of link to. And while I won't say it led me to my next job, the connection in recruiting and that type of thing, that it definitely helped, kind of jumpstart once I got to Commerce, kind of jumpstart, hey, this guy's pretty good. He's been at a few different places. He's won a national championship at junior college. He went 3 rounds deep, had the offensive lineman of the year, got some D1 experience, even though I know Colby Carthel and knew him before taking that job at Commerce, it just was, it was kind of like a rubber stamp of approval on a resume, if that's, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense here. I love coach talk on this show, and I absolutely understand it. No worries.
Sure.
But you bring up Commerce. You moved on to Commerce, went there. You were there for 3 years, and it's kind of mushy when you look it up. You had multiple jobs there. You were an associate head coach. You took care of defensive line. You took care of some offensive line. You did a lot of stuff there, and you also won a national championship.
Yep.
Which is incredibly cool.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, I don't know if I've had, it was actually 5 years. But it felt like 3. I don't know if I've had a more time fun coaching than I did with that staff at Commerce. We had such a good staff, and we were successful, and I did wear a lot of hats. And again, we did this thing where, we basically sang Kumbaya around this, the table before the season started, the year we won the national championship. And, we kind of just went back and forth telling each other what we thought their strengths were. And the strength that came back at me was versatility. And that was from Colby. And and he's right now. And he asked me to do a lot, but it really, while I only coach the defensive ends, and that's a small part of the the defense, all the other things help kind of factor into, making our team successful and giving them that D1 experience, which I think, our players appreciated. And, and I use some of those experiences as a D2 coach and associate head coach. It's kind of his right-hand man, as, now that I'm in this United States Football League. These guys are guys that aspire to be NFL guys. Well, it wasn't any different in Division II. Those guys were aspiring to be Division I guys. So it was very easy as soon as I got on site that, just to kind of be able to relate with them and, and let them know, hey, I'm going to put you in a position to be successful. And through my versatility, I'm going to find as many ways as possible to do that for you.
Well, that versatility absolutely paid off, Coach. I got a picture here. I found it on, I want to say, a blog that maybe you or your wife made.
Who knows? I don't even know what you're about to put up. I'm kind of nervous.
Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one. No worries. You look great in a bathing suit. No, I'm just kidding. There you go, Coach.
There you go. Yeah.
National champs, 14-1. Sweet little Under Armour logo there.
Sure.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Now that is cool.
Yep. That was actually a really cool day, getting to pass out those rings and just be a part of that team. Luis Perez was our quarterback. He was the New Jersey Generals quarterback this year, or one of them. And, it was, like I said, it was just such a great time, and, a great staff, great players. Everything just came together the right way. And, like I said, it's probably the best 5 years of my coaching career.
That's awesome. I think it's funny that, talking to you, we found a couple times when our paths almost crossed.
Sure.
When you were coaching at SMU, your 1 year, that was my freshman year at Baylor, and we played the first game of the season against each other. So you were right there in front of me, because I don't know if you remember, but our student section is directly behind the opponent. Oh,
I remember it very clearly. Y'all did not make it very easy for us to make any kind of adjustments or even really talk to the players. And it being the first game at McLean Stadium. It's called McLean Stadium, right?
McLean Stadium.
Yeah. Yes, it's the first game ever that's ever been played there. Baylor ever played there. And Robert Griffin's on the other side just going nuts, getting y'all all amped up, ramped up. It was, it was over by the end of the first quarter, but y'all let us know about it for 4 quarters.
That was a different time back then. And I high-fived RG3 before the game when he ran out of the tunnel, and he's actually signed this Baylor helmet back here, which is super cool.
He's a great ambassador for the game, man. I hate that, we didn't get to see a much longer pro career, but he's awesome at what he does. Good Copper's Cove kid. I remember watching him in high school. That kid could flat out go.
He's a wild athlete. Yep. Incredible. But another time that our paths kind of crossed in a way by 2 degrees of separation, the year that you won the national championship at Texas A&M Commerce, my best friend was starting left tackle for Tarleton State.
There you go. I definitely game planned him. I probably got notes on him.
Yes. So the final game of the season, when he heard that, because he knows about all this stuff that I'm doing, he's been my best friend since 7th grade.
Sure.
He called me when the Luis Perez news came out when they signed him during training camp, and he said, "Man, I got a story for you about Luis Perez." He goes, "Texas A&M Commerce." He goes, "We played them last game of the season the year that they won the national championship." He goes, "If we beat them, we were going to knock them out of the playoffs." And he said it came down their final drive of the game. They had to score a touchdown or they lost. He goes, "We got them to a 4th and 6. And Luis Perez came out and threw a 30-yard touchdown pass on 4th and 6 to beat us and get them into the playoffs. And they went and won it that season."
It's just like we drew it up. And what people don't know is that it wasn't that game, but I think it was the next week in the first round. Luis hurt his knee. He was not 100% through those playoffs at all, like not even close. We went up to Central Washington and we were down 28 points with a quarterback with a bum leg. And we were thinking, man, well, that's all she wrote. And he just found a different, and that's Luis is a winner. I mean, he just found something inside and just capped off our magical run.
He got really good at bowling, and he just thought, man, maybe I can throw a football too.
Hey, he could deep snap a bowling ball between his legs and get a strike. I mean, he can do whatever he wants with a bowling ball. It's nuts.
He is wild. But moving on from there, you go to Texas Wesleyan, director of football operations. I believe it said an NFL liaison.
Yeah, and I was at a Commerce as well, and then, all that is essentially it's glorified. It's just, hey, when the scouts come, you talk to them, you get the information out, and that's actually how I met our GM. He was a scout for the San Francisco 49ers, and Bob's a diligent worker, and he never missed our place, even though we were D2. He was there every year, and he even came to he came to our game against Midwestern State. And I mean, I think a lot about Bob Morris, but I mean, work ethic, man, it's nothing. No one outworks Bob.
I don't think there's a GM in this league that outworks Bob. Not even close.
Yeah.
What a man.
Well, he's a dang good one. But yeah, I was at Wesleyan, before I went to Wesleyan, and we did the AAF thing, unless you're just doing college, but there was the AAF stop and the XFL stop before Wesleyan. But if we're, I don't mean to jump ahead, but yes.
No, I actually accidentally jumped ahead of myself on my tablet.
Oh, well, there you go. And that's okay, because Wesleyan it was a great year. We were picked, I think, second to last in the conference when I got there. And I think we finished second. And like I said, I worked for a great guy, Jordan Higgins, and he was a stud and, taught me a whole lot. And we got the offensive line rolling, and, we were in every statistical category. I mean, we were right there in the top 10 in the country. So it was a great time. It was a great stop fill, and that got me to the Houston Gamblers.
Man, I truly believe that the entire offense starts with the O-line.
Sure.
And I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. I can tell you can have as much talent as you want on an offense. If you can't block, it doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. So, I mean, I think offensive line in general, coaching offensive line, it's a thankless job a lot of the time, but man, is it just one of the most important positions in the game.
There's no question. And I mean, I don't know, other than maybe soldiers, and I don't mean to demean our soldiers or anything like that, but
it's okay. I am one. I am not upset.
Well, I mean, willing to put yourself on a front line in front of somebody else that's looking to hit you, I mean, as hard, if not harder, than you're, going to hit them. And then after that, if they get past you, they're going to hit another one of your buddies as hard as they possibly can. And so, just like you said, it starts with us. And, in war, it starts with the front line. And, so there's obviously, you being a soldier, you probably have a few screws loose too. I mean, you got to have something in there that maybe thank your mom and dad that you were given that gene, or, the whatever wire crossed in your brain. But, it starts and stops with us. And if, you never want to know who the center is coming out of a game, and, most of the laundry's on us. So, I mean, it's never really great press unless it's bad press. or it's never press unless it's bad press for us. And so, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of reasons why not to do it, but we still find guys that are willing to do it. And that's what's impressive.
No, I think, it is a sensitive subject and stuff, soldiers, but I think that is a great analogy, front lines, and it's often very thankless, both in the military, both in offensive line. You only hear about it if it's bad.
That's exactly right.
Not great. That's, you got to be a little weird, and trust me, I am, to do that. And I think you're absolutely right. But to go back to what I skipped a little bit, I noticed for the XFL Dallas Renegades, you were an advanced scout.
Sure.
What is the difference between a scout and an advanced scout?
So a scout, they're constantly looking for players, and advanced scouts are too. But my job for the Renegades was more specifically on who we're playing next. So while everyone's working on beating that current opponent, I'm working a week ahead, finding signals, injuries, writing up bios on players, getting, data just from the other team. So, because as you know, it's a quick turnaround, you playing football. So, how quick football season it's round and round and round, when Sunday, when those coaches, or Monday, when those coaches get to the office, while they just spent their entire last week trying to win a game, which is incredibly hard to do, now they're able to get, they can turn the page, and then they can have, they already can have an idea of what to expect this coming week, so they can do their job and do it at a higher level.
That's super cool. I didn't know that there were scouts for that, specifically for not just the next week, but the week after.
Right.
That's wild. Which also means that
they do it in the NFL too. I mean, it's a great gig, man. I just, it's more on the pro side than the college side, of course, but it's definitely, I think it takes a football mind to do it, because you got to know what to look for.
Mm-hmm. And that also means that sadly, when the XFL went under in 2020, you had planned for a game that never happened. I'm sorry, Coach. That's
exactly right. I actually planned for the next 5 games while we waited to see what was going to happen. So it wasn't just one, unfortunately. But it affected everybody.
True. I was sad to see it go, but that inevitably got you here, and now I'm talking to you. So I can't say I'm mad about it. But so then I found a few very interesting things on this blog that either you or your wife made. It was nice, and it had a lot of information that I did not think that I was going to get to find on you, because you're an O-line coach, thankless job. There's not a lot of stuff on you other than when you go to a college football page and you go to the staff and you see the little excerpt, oh, he did this, this, and this.
Right.
So I found this blog, and something that I noticed that I thought was incredibly cool was it said you founded the Lone Star Pro Day.
Yep. So NFL liaison for commerce,
Mm-hmm.
Just visiting with scouts, it wasn't a challenge. If you can play, they'd find you. But because where we were located in Commerce, an hour from an airport, it was easier to get scouts to our place. So what I did was I was like, hey, listen, you're going to have guys that maybe can make the league, maybe not, but maybe they have certain measurements or things that you look for, and it's hard for a scout to get to Kingsville, America, or Angelo. Obviously if they have guys, and they had guys, but it was so much easier for those guys to just come to me, and we had a pretty nice facility for weight rooms and that type of deal. And so all I did was every school in Texas that wasn't a D1, I reached out to their NFL liaison. I worked with other scouts, and I tried to get, I think we had ended up having 70, 80 kids every year that I did it, from all different schools. It wasn't just our school. It was every small school that I could get there that it gave them an opportunity to showcase their skills.
Man, something like that. It shows that you have the absolute perfect mindset to be in a league like this. Because just the guys who are trying to get in front of scouts, the guys who are trying to get some tape, who are just trying to get seen, to have someone see them, you were there just pushing for them. And you said, hey, let's make it easier on the scouts, because they're a lot more likely to show up if they don't have to put in that much work to get there.
There's no doubt. And I mean, it was, I was motivated by players to do it, and no more motivation than the players that I had in my own room. I wanted them to get seen, but I wanted them to get seen by as many people as possible. So it wasn't just the NFL. I had the CFL coming. You had European coaches coming. We had our first meeting. We had a guy that had worked overseas come, and I had him literally put on a 30-minute presentation on how these guys can get overseas and play college football. So it wasn't just, hey, we're going to go, run the 40 and let all these scouts see you. It was, I was trying to give them just, if you wanted to play football, I wanted to give you that opportunity to keep playing football, because this game is so incredible that, I'm 40 years old. I wish I could still play it. Unfortunately, I can't. I couldn't even play it 20 years ago. But, if these, when you sign a kid or after sitting in a room, in a living room, and tell mom and dad, hey, he's going to be okay. I'm going to take care of him. I didn't take that for granted. If I told a parent that, I did everything I could to live up to that.
You have quickly become one of my favorite coaches that I've ever spoken to.
Well,
That's I especially love what you say, where you wish you still could play football. That was something that my dad told me, I think my 8th grade year of football. I was like, Dad, I don't want to do this. I am 5 foot tall and it's super hard. I grew a little, but
sure.
He told me, he said, son, I still dream about football. He goes, and someday you're going to look back and you're going to wish you were still playing. So you should play as long as you can. Well,
my dad told me something totally different, and albeit great advice still. He said, and I remember it very clear. I called him, and I wasn't playing very much and in college. And, he said, Andy, you'll never outgrow the game of football, but eventually the game outgrows you. And it did. And I was very fortunate to stay on that team. We won conference, my senior year, and lifelong friendships through that team. But he was right. The game had just simply outgrown me. I was a scrawny, 6'1", 210 pound kid from, Naples, Texas. And, the game outgrew me, unfortunately. But I got to do a lot of things that, probably some of my teammates, 2A school, we did win state, but a lot of those guys did not get to go on and play college football.
I think, while our fathers gave us very different sounding advice, it almost creates the same mentality where, sure, yes, the game will outgrow you. Yes, someday you'll look back at it. And so it kind of creates that desire to postpone that for other people. These players that are going to the ELF or going to the CFL who get to come to the USFL, it's just giving them another opportunity to play the game that they love, even if they might not be able to move up from there. It's just postponing the time when they're going to go to bed and dream about football and wake up and think,
there's no doubt. My oldest son, Trip, he's just like me. And he's, Dad, I'm going to be D1. Tell Coach Sumlin all about me. I'm going to be D1. Okay. Well, good luck.
Man, I hope so. I would love to cover him, have him on my show.
Absolutely. He wanted to be on right now, but he's got a final coming up. He's a freshman at Highland Park, and they don't play with their academics. He's in there studying right now.
It's always school first. Even when you get it, tell him even with D1, man, school first. No school, can't play.
No doubt.